it must have been difficult when you cut the film and then you tape it together wherever you're making the cut, and then if you want to go back and make a change, you're really you have to pull everything apart physically. Whereas now with the computer, it's easy to
and which brings me to working with Francis Coppola for the first time, right? Where I'm like really so green. I've edited a documentary, feature documentary, and one feature. And then while I'm working for the master, in 1980 he was the greatest director on earth, and there is me. And so I would be very nervous. I mean, he left me alone, which gave me room to function. If he had been in the room, I don't think I would have pulled it off. I was so nervous.
Do you usually not like a director to?
Never liked it, and fortunately I work with directors who always left me alone. Of course they come, and then once the cut is in shape, they are there and it's fun, everybody's, then the fun starts. But when you started, I've always been left alone. So anyway, and I remember because I would be so nervous, so I would cut here and then 2 frames later I would recut, and then of course, when you screen the cut, you could hear every cut go through the projector, and so I was so embarrassed and humiliated, thinking I looked like such an amateur. Sometimes when it was bad, I would go, literally, I would cough, because I was so embarrassed to have so many cuts, because I would hesitate, and I would redo.
Yeah, that was One from the Heart, which you worked on. It was one of the most innovative films at the time, and also one of the most ambitious, because Francis Coppola had purchased this huge studio in Hollywood. He built every set in the studio. No one left the studio to shoot anything, including all the exterior night shots that were in Las Vegas. He built Vegas streets.
Yeah.
He had these incredible I think even electronic editing systems.
Yes.
And he would even direct from something called the Silverfish, which was his own little electronic editing bay, and communicate with crew through there. And I think even his first initiative on the project was to make it almost like a live theatrical production. What did you see from that perspective in terms of?
Well, I was bored after the end of shooting. After they had finished all that, all this. I mean, Francis is really a visionary, and he's a very technical person, and he has ideas before anybody does. Video playback. He was the first one to do that. And he had this idea about electronic editing and all the stuff. But unfortunately for him, at that time, the technology was not really very good. So it was just not good enough, not like it is today. So by the time I was hired, which was the very end of production, I think he pretty much, and the first editor was gone. I never even saw his cut. And so he decided, let's go on film. Let's do it on film. So for me, I mean, I was in the Silverfish because he would have his son there at the time, Gio, trying things. So I never had to work the technology. I just cut on film. But of course, I know all those stories about it was done. I mean, not the difficulties. The challenge of the film was that it was not shot like a classical, Hollywood movie with those long master sequences. And so if something didn't work, of course, you had to find solutions that were not, you had to approach it very creatively, not with a system in your head. And I think that I was told later that's why they hired me, because I was not your typical Hollywood editor. I was not trained, in that school of editing. I was not trained in any school of editing. I just happened to go to the movies a lot and went to film school. And also, as I said, I studied art history, which gave me a great visual. I just had enormous visual knowledge, right?
Yeah.
They hired me because they thought, well, she's not going to approach it with, she's going to whatever, she's going to tear through that thing. And I think that my ignorance really, gave me tremendous courage. I just would attack the thing and do things that if I had been trained and seen another, editor do it, I might not have done, because I had no reference. Just me going at it.
What was one of the most challenging parts of editing that? Because as you said, there are very long takes, and also within those long takes, there's a lot of foreground, background action that's almost theatrical, where you have one character in one location, whether it be a house, and then the male Frederick Forrest is in a house, he's talking to his friend Terry Dean Stanton, and then in the background it kind of racks focus to Terry Garr and her friend having this conversation.
That's a theatrical technique, Well,
was that difficult to cut in terms of pacing if you wanted to see
and
faster?
Also because the cinematographer is Vittorio Storaro, and a great master, and he had written specific things about the color, whether something was green or red or blue, and so I was very aware of. And I wanted to do a good job for him because he had a concept. And as an editor, you always try first to serve the concept, because those are great filmmakers. So I worked a lot on working with the colors, the best I could. They were all very, very difficult. The first scene I cut was a scene in Las Vegas, where they are crossing each other and not they don't know they are going on other dates, if I remember clearly, and they almost bump into each other, but they don't, right? So that was like a montage type of thing. That was the first thing I cut, and I think that Francis gave it to me as a test before I was hired, but you know what I mean? They thought, okay, let's give her something and see what she does. I was never told that, but it felt like it. Everybody was gone when I did that. I was like in the studio pretty much by myself. And later on I found that, the previous editor, the Frances, Gio, the whole army of people had tried to find a way to do this. And that's what they gave me. I didn't know that, thank God.
So that was something they had been working on for a long time, but you found a solution.
Yeah, I did it, and he loved it, and I became the editor.
And that kind of forged your relationship with Francis Coppola through The Outsiders and through Dracula. So when you're working with a director so frequently, do you have sort of an established way of working from film to film, or does that ever change just based on the inherent nature of the material?
No, with Francis, we have always worked the same way. I would say on Dracula he came a little more often because we were in San Francisco the whole time, and he would visit almost every day, sometimes just for a few minutes, but I saw more of him there. No, Francis, and I asked him on Dracula, I said, why did you leave me alone? Why did you leave me alone so much? And he said, because I knew that was the best with you, that I would get the best results. And I thought, how brilliant is that?
Yeah.
How brilliant. He was absolutely right, because not so much on Dracula, because I had gotten very confident by then, but on One from the Heart, if he had been breathing down my throat between the technical handling and the creative handling, I would have freaked out, I think. Freaked out. And so bless his heart. Love him. To work with him is fantastic.